You're tuning in to Luminal on the Wall. Welcome. I'm your host, Becky, and joining me always is my co-host and beautiful sister, Bevy.
In our podcast, we will take a deep dive into the evil side of humanity. We will talk about suspicious deaths, shoddy investigations, and all the gory details in between.
But be warned, we will not hesitate to call BS when we hear it, which means you may not always agree with us, but we promise to lay out the evidence so you can come to your own conclusions based on what is presented.
Listeners' discretion is advised. Hey Becky.
Hey Beverly.
What's going on, Yvonne?
Oh, not much. You know what? I actually saw something pretty nuts today.
What was it?
I'm walking the dog.
Yeah?
You know how I have those glorious ponds by my house?
Yeah.
Anyways, one of the little paths that lead onto the pond is like it's a pretty steep hill, but short.
Yeah.
I see these two kids, 11 or 12, my guess anyways. The one kid comes down the path, turns, no problem. Second kid flies down like he's cruising at an obnoxiously fast pace for that hill. I don't know how. Anyways, he turns, he eats shit so hard. I'm probably 200, 300 feet away, but I'm like,
holy shit.
yeah, I literally was walking and was like, oh my God. I was like, I hope he's okay. And he stayed on the ground until I walked over there. And I was like, oh my God, are you guys okay? And the kid looks at me, he's like, yeah, I'm just a little bit rattled, but I'm okay.
Really? I'm just a little bit rattled.
Yeah, he was like on a cell phone. I'm not sure if he was calling for help or what, but I was like, are you sure? Yeah, thanks so much for asking. I was like, okay, have a good day. You too, thanks.
Oh, wow. You probably saw it and had a little bit of a
flashback, yeah.
Flashback.
Absolutely, I did. I was like, damn. However, I've never biffed it that hard on a scooter. That I can say.
Not on a scooter. On
many other things.
Just like, don't go into details.
Yeah,
literally, can you not?
Let's just encapsulate all of them in that one statement. No details, Beverly.
Just everyone be known. She never biffed it on a scooter.
That's right. That's my safe zone.
That's so funny. Poor kid. At least he wasn't super hurt.
Yeah, I mean, there was no blood that I saw, but he, from my point of view, it looked like he hit that pavement hard and slid.
Ooh. You were like, he's definitely got some road rash.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like that pond now has a piece of his face on it.
Piece of his face.
Yeah. It was nasty. I felt bad, but shouldn't have fallen.
Kids shall be kids.
That's right.
Maybe next time you'll pump the brakes, little guy.
Yeah, because there was no brakes used. I swear, Bev. It was flying.
Lord almighty.
All right, I got a really controversial story for you today.
Mm-hmm.
And are you ready to get into it?
I think I am.
Frick yeah. The year was 1994, and a young man named Sebastian was visiting his friend Atif in Bellevue, Washington, which was just outside of Seattle. Sebastian was staying with Atif for the week, and the two friends decided that they wanted to go out for the night. When they arrived back at Atif's home, they are met with a horrific scene. They find Atif's family brutalized in a gory and truly horrifying state, and around 2 a.m., a 911 call is placed. Now, before getting into all the details, Bev, of what happened, let's journey back to 1976. This was the year Atif Rafay was born. Atif was born into a family of 3, including his parents, Tariq and Sultana Rafay, and his older sister, Basma Rafay. Tariq and Sultana primarily raised their children in Vancouver, British Columbia, but the family's footprint extended to Karachi, Pakistan, where they resided from 1984 to 1989. While Sultana had earned a doctorate in nutrition, her focus in life was dedicated to her children. Atif's sister was diagnosed with autism early on in her life, and it was said that Atif was a very gifted intellectual. Sultana worked alongside her husband endlessly so they could provide their kids with the best life they possibly could. Tariq was an accomplished structural engineer who left his mark on projects across the globe. His passion and expertise were not limited to engineering alone. He also co-founded and served as the president of the Canadian-Pakistan Friendship Organization. This endeavor was driven by the goal of fostering unity among diverse cultural groups through the powerful bond of friendship. Throughout their lives, Tariq and Sultana Rafay embraced their identity as prominent Sunni Muslims and actively participating in both religious and cultural circles in Vancouver. Later, as they relocated their family to Bellevue, Washington, in the early 90s, their involvement continued to flourish within that community. During this period, their son Atif had reached the age of 18 and was embarking on his freshman year at Cornell University. The summer of 1994 brought Atif and his high school friend Sebastian Burns to spend time with the Rafay family. On the evening of July 12, 1994, the two friends made plans for a night out. This encompassed dinner, a movie, and a visit to a nightclub.
Sounds like a nice enough night.
Right? That's what any 18-year-old would do.
Yeah.
When they returned to the Rafay family home just after 2 a.m. on the morning of July 13th, they were surprised with a horrific crime scene, Bev. Atif's parents and sister had been brutally assaulted. The boys found Atif's mother first, then his father, and they could hear his sister moaning within the house.
Frick, that's a gnarly sight.
I couldn't even imagine. I would be traumatized for life.
No doubt.
It was at this point, Bev, that Sebastian Burns picked up the phone and makes a devastating call to 911. He tells the operators that him and Atif believe there was a break-in in the Rafay family's residence, informing them that Atif's family had been brutally assaulted. And when they arrive at the scene, they find Sultana, Atif's mother, with numerous fatal blows to the head. The way that she was found left investigators to believe that she may have been praying in the last moments of her life. Atif's sister was hanging on to life, moaning in pain in her bedroom. After having suffered several blows to her head and body, her injuries were not immediately fatal, but she unfortunately did succumb to those injuries just a few hours later in hospital, and she would not be able to help the police identify her family's attacker.
Oh, no.
I know,
That's
it's like
so
one shred of hope
unfortunate.
that they might be able to know who it is, but she was just too injured.
That's so sad.
It is. Tariq was found laying in his bed with his head completely crushed in. It was said that...
Holy shit.
I know. It was said, Bev, that it looked like he had suffered anywhere from 40 to 50 blows by a blunt object. That's how badly beaten he was.
That is insane, Becky. To have someone get beaten, like, they must have just been hammering on the exact same spot on his head over and over and over to crush his skull in.
Oh, for sure. It seems a little overkill. I mean, this family was a nice family.
Yeah, it does seem like a complete overkill.
Right? Like, who would do this
At
to them?
some point, you know that person is dead, and yet you keep on smashing their head in. Like, that is why you think it's rage, right? Because
why else would you
continue?
Yeah, exactly. Not only did the police see Tariq, but they noticed the walls, the floors, and ceiling of the bedroom had been covered in the family's blood, along with bone fragments, teeth, and body tissue.
Oh my God.
Not only that, their blood was tracked all through the property and stained the carpets, other walls, the downstairs bathroom, and there was a series of footprints scattered through the garage.
So this would be the attackers, most likely.
I can only assume.
Like going to the downstairs bathroom, maybe cleaning themselves off a bit, etc. Oof.
This was such a horrifying, messy scene.
Yeah, sounds like it.
The investigators couldn't help, Bev, but wonder, like we just said, why was this wholesome and loving family killed? And with such violence? During their initial investigation of the crime scene, the police noticed certain details that made them speculate on whether the intruder was an unknown assailant or if they were known to the family. Some of these details included that not a single door was locked on the premises, which in and of itself doesn't actually provide them with any answers because the family, they could have been really trusting of their neighborhood.
Yeah, and just like not locked their doors that night.
Yeah, like oh, we forgot.
Or just like not locked them yet.
Exactly.
Especially if the mom was praying before bed, maybe she would have
locked them before she went to bed.
There's so many times where I literally lock my door right before I head upstairs to go to bed.
Right.
Not always, but sometimes I'll like double check the door and it's unlocked and it's been unlocked all night. So say if I was in a separate part of my house, someone could have literally just walked in. So that's a possibility.
Exactly. They could have caught you off guard.
Right.
And that could have happened to them. This, however, was enough to pique the police's suspicion. There was also zero damage on any of the doors, so the claims that it was a break-in didn't seem all that likely. So,
however, like we said, it is possible it was a break-in, but just like an easy break-in.
Yeah, exactly. What seemed kind of weird to the police is that the family seemed to be unaware that an intruder was in their home.
Right. Their dad is sleeping. Daughter seems to be getting ready for bed and mom's praying.
Yeah. You know, they were still going on at whatever they were doing and nothing caught their attention.
Right. But if I am the police, I would have to think about the fact that if all the doors were unlocked, if an intruder came in, the family might not necessarily be aware.
They could have done it so stealthily.
Yeah. Just snuck right in there and surprise attack the family, which obviously is kind of like what happened, but it could have been that they did not know the assailant. But it could also mean that they knew the assailant and the assailant could have had a key, i.e. their son and his friend, or what have you. So I'm sure they're toggling those two possibilities in their mind.
Exactly. So they have to narrow it down.
Right.
Now, what seemed a little odd, the investigators noticed that there was a bunch of boxes with paper in them, and they were kind of just like tipped over, not really like tussled, but just like
strewn about.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was also drawers and cabinets that were open, but it didn't look like anything had been ransacked. And when Atif was asked if anything had been taken from the home, he told the investigators that his VCR, along with his personal Discman, had been taken. So out of all the things that family had that were worth money in their home,
a VCR
and a Discman.
And
in 1994, Bev, those two items, it's not like they were super rare or super expensive. Like, everyone had them.
Yeah, they were very common, for sure. Side note, I literally remember walking to school with my massive Discman in my pocket.
The silver one?
Yeah, the silver one, and the headphones, and how many times it would be on its side and then the CD would skip. It would be so annoying.
You're like, oh my God.
You're like, this damn Discman.
You have to hold it like a freaking pizza being delivered.
Yeah. In the freezing cold, walking to school, like, no.
Yeah, you're literally
this
thinking.
This isn't cool.
And you're thinking to yourself, is Avril Lavigne worth it? Is she?
A Simple Plan worth it? No.
I'd do anything.
Just to listen to these songs.
That's right.
Oh, man. So basically, coming back to this case, the cops are thinking that this is
hella odd.
Like a staged break-in almost, or it would seem that way because nothing of value was really taken, and it didn't really look like their house had been looked through.
Yeah, it looked very staged, like you said. On top of it, Bev, there was actually money, expensive jewelry, higher value electronics, all in the house for someone to take if that was truly the motive.
Right.
So
very suspicious.
Yeah, thinking that someone killed 3 people so
they could
like violently
steal things.
To think that someone could kill these 3 people so violently over a Discman and a VCR is kind of silly. It's stupid.
Yeah, like highly unlikely.
Yeah, that's not worth it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, nothing is worth that, but to a criminal maybe, right? But not those low ticket items.
No doubt. It's like if you go through the effort of violently massacring like 3 people, take the things that are worth the money at the very least, right? Like you would think if you go through all that effort, take the things that could give you some benefit.
Yeah, high-value items.
Hmm.
So this leads police to think that theft was not the motive.
Of course.
It's not what was intended. The investigators immediately brought Atif and Sebastian in for questioning. They were the ones who found his family. Of course, they're their number one person to speak to.
Of course.
To give you a little insight on these boys' relationship, I'll explain how they met and what their relationship was like. Both of them had been students at a high school in West Vancouver, and they shared a similar sense of humor, which was sarcastic. Beyond that, they discovered a plethora of common interests, from their intellectual inclinations to share passions like debate and reading. This mutual connection laid the foundation for their camaraderie. Their friendship unveiled an intriguing dynamic. Burns possessed remarkable athleticism and striking looks, qualities that didn't go unnoticed by their peers. He displayed a certain assertiveness in his relationships, which complemented Atif's more reserved nature. This pairing worked well as Burns coaxed out a more confident side of Atif. He introduced him to the art of dressing to impress and navigating the world of social interactions, particularly when it came to meeting the girls.
I do find that type of dynamic bodes well for all sorts of relationships. Friendships, romantic partners.
Everything.
Everything.
So obviously their dynamic through high school worked amazingly for them.
Right.
However, once they graduated, their paths went separate ways. Sebastian remained in Vancouver, opting for community college, while Atif's family relocated to Bellevue, where he gained admission to the prestigious Cornell University. This brings us to why Sebastian was all the way in Bellevue with Atif on the night of the family's murder.
He was visiting his friend.
Yes, he was. Besties. So once the boys were brought into the police station, they both offered an account of their actions on that evening. Their alibi appeared solid. At 8:30 p.m., they enjoyed their dinner at a steakhouse, followed by a 9:50 p.m. screening of The Lion King, which also, I remember the first time I saw The Lion King. I was so little, and I cried.
If you don't cry during The Lion King, you don't have a heart.
Definitely. So post-movie, their hunger led them to a diner for a late-night snack. This sequence of events on the surface might seem routine, yet their behavior left a distinctive impression. For instance, their choice to leave a generous $6 tip on a $9 bill at the diner, while seemingly minor, stood out as it deviated from the norm and etched them into the memory of the staff.
Right. They're like, that's a great tip. A $9 bill? Jeez.
It's almost the whole bill.
However, it still only amounts to a grand total of $15.
But we're talking about the 90s, Bev.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
That's when like 10% tipping was like
the norm
as
like, compared to now. 18%. It's the new 15%.
That it is. And that, my friend, is more than 50%.
Yeah, true.
Just saying, the 90s were a little different.
It would stand out as like memorable if you were a wait staff.
Absolutely. So despite their seemingly normal evening, investigators still had some big questions for Atif. One of them being, why had he not even tried to help his sister when he would have been able to hear her moaning through the door?
Yeah, signs of life, right?
Yeah, like I would bombard in there.
Oh, if you were in there, Becky, and I heard you moaning, clinging to life, I would
do everything.
Not even think twice.
Atif said in his recorded interview that he didn't know how hurt she was, but all he knew is that he couldn't do anything to help her.
Well, I mean, when I hear that, I think maybe he was doubting that he could help her. He did find his mom and his dad in a horrifying state, way past dead. So even if he did hear her moaning, he truly might think she's gonna be basically dead.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, Bev. However, being a sibling?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
There is no way emotionally I could just leave the house and go wait for the cops if I heard you moaning in pain or your last
moment
on your deathbed.
I would want to like be with you, and I'd be crying hysterically. Oh my god.
Exactly. So that's why it seems in that response, it seems like heartless.
It totally seems heartless.
And that's
where the cops were at too, right? I'm sure they were thinking that.
Exactly. And just like me, they also found it suspicious because Unless you check on her vitals, especially in a life or death situation, how would you know that there was nothing you could do? Like, if her heart stopped in front of you, you could do CPR, and that will give a better fighting chance to come out of this alive, you know?
I do, yeah.
So it like I said, it's freaking heartless.
Mm-hmm.
However, Bev, the 911 tape does provide additional insight as to why they didn't check on her. Sebastian was recorded having said that they were going to wait outside because they were scared that the house may be dangerous.
I mean,
fair point.
That's such a fair point. You would never know. Your mom's dead, your dad's dead. What if your sister was in the process of being murdered, right? What if someone was in her room at that moment? So I would say, compared to my initial response on this matter, I would say that response is probably a lot more plausible, solely because I would too be scared. And that would be something where it's like, do I risk my own life in the process of wanting to be there for my sister? Or do I get to safety, get help, and pray for
her well-being?
Her well-being.
But then also, why give the police the response he gave them? That there was nothing he could do. What, like, why was that the response instead of just saying, like, listen, man, I was scared. I thought she might still be getting, like, hit or something or bad.
That's so true.
Why is that the answer he gave them? Ugh, it still just doesn't sit right with me regardless if it was true or not.
Yeah. No matter how good it sounds, sketchy. A little bit sketchy.
Very sketchy, Bev. So we're finding it sketchy, and so did those investigators. After speaking with the boys, they felt unnerved about the whole situation, and the information and accounts of the evening that they got from them just didn't sit right with them once they left.
Once the boys left the station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they actually became prime suspects.
Well, usually the people that find the bodies become suspects in general, or at least have to be ruled out.
Absolutely.
So it does make sense. Plus they're a little sketchy, so shoot to the top of the list.
Exactly. It makes sense. Over the next couple days, the detectives continued to collect evidence for this case. However, the Rafay family was forced to deal with the reality that their family members are dead.
Right.
Now, Bev, from my understanding, it's proper Muslim practice that their bodies be buried right away. So the funeral actually took place rather quickly. It was only 3 days after their death.
Okay.
Their families traveled from all over to attend the funerals. Tariq's brother had flown in all the way from Toronto. He did this immediately after he got this devastating news about his brother. He was able to view his brother's body after arriving in Bellevue. The sight shook him to his core despite being, as he described himself, a strong individual. He was gobsmacked with the level of brutality that his family and brother had suffered.
No kidding. Especially because we talked about his brother's head being completely crushed in.
I can't believe he actually saw that. It's like they knew who he was.
Tough. Oh, man.
Tariq's brother felt compelled to contact his nephew while he was in Bellevue for the funeral. He tried contacting Atif, who was staying at a room in the Bellevue motel. The police had requested this because his home was obviously an active crime scene.
Right, of course.
However, all of his uncle's calls went unanswered despite leaving multiple messages. All he wanted to do was help console his nephew and be there to support him. But Atif seemed to want nothing to do with him, and when it came time for the family's funeral, Atif remained MIA.
What? What, Becky?
I know, who does that?
I mean, okay, he could be grieving in his own way.
He saw
he
something
did
terrible.
See something completely traumatizing, and maybe going to the funeral would truly be re-traumatizing, and maybe he really couldn't deal with that. So I feel compelled to give him a pass on this one, but at the same time, WTF, right?
WTF.
However, he doesn't have any immediate family there. They're all gone. I would definitely feel out of place and very isolated and odd going to a funeral for my family when I knew that they were like, no one that was super close to me was going to be there. That would be hard.
And just the gravity of it all on top of it.
Yeah, you're going to, like, I couldn't imagine you, Axel, Dad, and Mom going to a funeral with all of our auntie and uncles, but you guys aren't there. And in fact, like, I don't know that I could cope and do that. I really don't know if I could.
I have no idea if I could either. You'd feel so alone because those are your friends, like your sibling friends. You're so close to them and your family, the closest people to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I just think you'd feel so isolated.
Well, Bev, guess where Atif was?
At the motel?
Good guess. So the decision to transport them there actually did make sense.
That does make sense to me too. Plus, Sebastian's his closest friend.
He needs that.
Yeah.
The boys had been accompanied by the Bellevue police. The duo was returned to Canada. And during the investigation, the boys' family members and legal representatives advised Sebastian and Atif to stay in Canada. They had concerns stemming from what they perceived as suspicious behavior on the part of the Bellevue Police Department.
Ooh.
So during this investigation, the conduct of the police department sparked a lot of controversy. They faced allegations of spreading misinformation and lies to the media.
Ooh.
The police claimed that the boys exhibited peculiar behavior on the night of the murders and in the days following. Accusations included their perceived lack of emotional reaction upon discovering the deceased family members, non-cooperation with Bellevue police, intentional absence from the funeral, and that they were fleeing to Canada when they actually got approval.
I wonder why the Bellevue police would do that. Maybe their suspicions got the best of them. But again, you should be innocent until proven guilty. And with those accusations, it does feel a little bit more like they're portraying a picture of the boys that paints them as guilty.
Like a little witch hunty.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it does seem that they became people of interest after a pretty light interrogation. And now, as a result of everything that Atif and Sebastian have ever done and were doing, are being highlighted in the media. For example, news spread that Atif and Sebastian were located in Vancouver, leading journalists to track them down to a memorial being held at a mosque in remembrance of the Rafay family. Attempting to engage them in conversation, the journalists were met with evasion. The two men bolted away, displaying behavior that seemed akin to a game. Their behavior was highlighted as being marked by laughter and having a carefree demeanor, which was stated to be a far cry from what one might expect from individuals in mourning, which I can see how the journalist came to that conclusion after watching the video. It does look like they're laughing and almost having a good time. However, they are in mourning. They are at a memorial for their dead family.
Right.
You know, thought process, maybe they're just laughing at the journalist to be like, get away from me. Haha, I did get away from you.
Sucker.
Yeah.
But they're still feeling sad and grief despite laughing, right? Like, that's possible to feel those two emotions simultaneously.
Oh, absolutely.
But the media is just highlighting that they're carefree and like laughing, and it's almost painting them in that light of I don't give a shit kind of
yeah
thing.
Exactly. So it's really unfortunate, but you can't always, you know, it's the classic, you can't always believe what you see on the news. Now, in the course of investigating their backgrounds, Bev, details emerged that provided insight to their personalities. Sebastian's reputation was tinged with a streak of unsettling behavior. A notorious prank involving him pilfering classmates' house keys and surreptitiously entering their homes in the dead of night. Although no harm was inflicted, the eerie intrusion understandably left a disconcerting impression on those affected. And it honestly left them feeling rather scared of Sebastian.
Yeah. He broke into their home. I don't care if it's with a key. He still broke into their home. That would be terrifying. To hear like footprints, a key unlocking in the middle of the night, terrifying.
That would scare the living daylights out of me. Even if it was a prank and someone I knew,
yeah,
I would still want to punch their face for like scaring the shit out of me.
no kidding. And I'd be like, I'm changing those goddamn locks and hiding this key forever.
Yeah, I don't trust you.
And it's a little bit concerning in terms of the whole investigation because Atif's home was thought to be broken into, right? So it's almost showing this pattern of behavior that relates to the crime.
Yeah, it totally does.
It's a little
scary.
A little scary.
It's just scary.
A little scary.
Well, Bev, further scrutiny into their lives uncovered a life insurance policy valued at $350,000. It designated Atif as the beneficiary.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. He was only the beneficiary provided he outlived his parents, which he did.
Definitely.
And as they settled in Vancouver, reports indicated the duo had acquired a convertible and rented an appealing home. They weren't alone, though. They had a mutual friend named Jimmy Miyoshi who moved in with them, and they were kind of living this bachelor haven.
Okay. You could think life insurance, that is the motive for a lot of murders.
Is greed the motive?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, they are buying frivolous things.
Right?
But they're young guys too, young men. I mean,
they're
if you come into that type of money, it's like, oh,
a lot of people would do that.
Yeah.
On top of it, Bev, the Rafay's estate was also worth around the $500,000 mark, which also went to Atif. So he had a large sum of money coming his way.
He really stood to benefit from their death, which is always concerning.
Bev, this idyllic setup was marred by the omnipresent scrutiny. A result of the high-profile nature of this case, they became social outcasts, drawing recognition and whispers wherever they ventured. Such notoriety fed their suspicion that law enforcement might be monitoring their movements.
Which they were, probably, no doubt.
Yes, their suspicions were not unfounded.
Exactly. I mean, we've just uncovered a pretty substantial potential for motive.
What the boys for sure didn't suspect is that they would become the center of a huge sting investigation with the code name Project Estate, aka a Mr. Big Sting.
Whoa.
This operation was set in place with the goal of gaining a full confession from both of these men. The police were seeking a chance to create a setup, a way to earn the boys' trust. The question was, how could they make this seem believable to them?
Right.
Luckily, they didn't have to wait long. Sebastian and Atif, driven by their ambition, wanted to turn their tragedy into a movie. They needed money to make it happen.
What? They wanted to make a movie about the death of Atif's family. Seems a little insensitive, no?
It's so early on. Yeah, I think it is.
That's ludicrous, Becky.
They had gone so far as writing a screenplay.
I'm sorry, I am shocked. I'm like, right now, my thought is, did they make it prior to the murders?
I thought the same thing, and I could not
figure out.
I would like to assume
they didn't.
They didn't.
Of course, same.
But it detailed the murders. It detailed what they're going through. It detailed a lot of stuff. All stuff that they would know, but it detailed it. So that is a good question. When did they write it?
Why would they want to relive it? Becky.
This is why
most people would put it far back in their memory and like suppress it.
Not have to think about it.
I need therapy to like deal with it.
PTSD, man.
I mean, one could say they're dealing with it via this, but like to detail that and create a screenplay, that is like
effed.
What the fudge, Becky?
What the fudge is frickin' right. This obviously, Bev, caught the investigators' attention.
Holy
This
shit.
is how they were gonna pull off this operation. They saw an opening to move forward with their plan. So an undercover officer approached Sebastian. He pretended he was locked out of his car and he needed a ride to the hotel he was staying at. Sebastian, he agreed. He didn't even hesitate. As a gesture of thanks, the officer suggested stopping at a local bar for a drink, leaving an impression on Sebastian. In their conversation there, the undercover officer skillfully led the talk towards Sebastian's screenplay. Sebastian shared that they were looking for funding to bring their cinematic dreams to life. In a later interview, Sebastian had made mention to how this encounter with this man had really impacted him. This man wanted to help him. He couldn't believe it.
Right. He's thinking, fate, my dreams come true.
Yeah.
This was meant to happen.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So when the undercover officer mentioned that he might have a contact who could assist them, he set up the introduction. Little did Sebastian know this introduction would be to an RCMP sergeant, posing as a crime boss. This crime boss offered Sebastian financial help with a catch. He needed to prove himself by assisting in money laundering. The plan involved Sebastian and Jimmy taking turns depositing money into various accounts across different banks.
I can't handle this at this moment, Rebecca.
No?
Because if you are under scrutiny for murder, do you really want to engage in illicit activities, such as laundering money?
Well, Bev, within that agreement, Sebastian would actually earn $2,000 a day for his work.
I mean, that's not a small amount.
I think a lot of people would be really happy to earn $2,000 a day. I'm just saying. I see, like, how he was compelled with that intrigue. Offer. So this went on over the next 3 months. Sebastian maintained these deposits, and their interactions with the crime boss deepened. The crime boss began to drop hints, letting Sebastian know that he was kind of aware of the trouble that he was in with these murders.
Right.
Or the suspicion, at least.
It's over the news. Makes sense that he might potentially get that information.
Exactly. The crime boss also told Sebastian that he knew that he was being pursued by the Washington police. In Sebastian's own recorded words, he stated that as far as he knew, the police had nothing concrete. Despite this, Sebastian remained silent, not admitting any involvement. He had been cautious in his discussion, offering very little that would tie him to the case. With Sebastian revealing minimal information, the RCMP felt the need to escalate their tactics.
Right. They're not getting much from him.
Exactly. Let's rev it up. They needed to apply pressure. They wanted to intensify the situation. They communicated to him that for their collaboration to continue, the foundation of trust was necessary. And to build this foundation, they required detailed information about significant crimes he may have committed. The crime boss assured Sebastian that once he disclosed this information, he would utilize his connections to help eliminate evidence linking Sebastian to any crime. This opportunity seemed super intriguing to Sebastian, so he continued to collaborate with the crime boss. However, in that process, hints had been dropped by the boss about others who hadn't cooperated with him and followed through with their end of the bargain, and they had faced consequences because of it.
Right. So this is kind of the police's tactic to really kind of instill fear in Sebastian and force him to actually be honest and to say the truth about everything. Otherwise, something bad could happen to you.
Exactly.
Ooh, tricky.
So obviously these tactics, Bev, they are meant to increase pressure on Sebastian. They want the whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
So help me freaking God. Now, the sergeant and his team escalate their tactics even more. They fabricated a memo using the Bellevue letterhead that presented supposed evidence linking Sebastian and his friend to the crime. It appeared that the walls were closing in on him.
Okay, I have to say this because hearing all of that, It just feels like the police have to go to such extreme measures to get, quote unquote, the truth from him. But don't you think that the measures that they're actually going to could potentially cause Sebastian to provide false information for fear of his life? Because they are lying about evidence, right? So he's looking at it going, holy shit, the cops have this evidence. So maybe I have to fabricate a story to this crime boss, or else he will think that by me not saying anything, I'm actually lying and my life could be in jeopardy. Like, I just have this feeling that their method of getting quote unquote true information from Sebastian could actually do the opposite, just given the whole circumstance or given the whole situation and context of where they're at.
Well, you know? Bev, it's funny that you say that, because this is the exact reason why there is so much controversy with the Mr. Big sting operations.
Right.
This right here is the issue. And that is exactly why the U.S. does not use this tactic.
Yeah, it's just...
There's too much risk of coercion, even though Sebastian could be telling the truth.
It could have forced him to tell the truth. Fair.
Yeah.
But like I said, it could also potentially cause him to do the exact opposite.
Yes.
Because he thinks he's literally working with a crime boss. He actually thinks his life could be in jeopardy if he doesn't come up with something that satisfies the crime boss, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't agree with that one. It's like it crossed the line right there.
You and the whole U.S. country.
Glad to know I'm not alone.
No, you are not. So at this point, we obviously know Sebastian has reached a pivotal realization.
Mm-hmm.
He needed their assistance. He did not want to go down for this murder. And so to gain their support, he understood that full disclosure was essential. This marks the culmination of the Mr. Big operation, a tactic involving undercover police officers deceiving suspects.
Mm-hmm.
The aim is to create an environment where suspects might confess, driven by the belief that they're revealing their past to a trusted confidant. The ethical concerns arise from the potential for coercion and manipulation.
Right, yeah.
And its use is prohibited in several countries. While this specific operation had been going on for a whole year by this point, Sebastian eventually divulged key information. The undercover officer confronted him with the questions, leading to Sebastian essentially admitting that he had orchestrated the events to obtain money from the Rafay family. The officer had inquired about how the execution happened.
Right.
Sebastian clarified that it was first Atif's mother, then his father, and then his sister. He had made comments that his sister was actually the hardest one to kill because she was up and roaming about and was a little bit harder for him. Following this interaction, Sebastian brought Atif to meet the crime boss, hoping to unravel his friend's side of the story. The officer, playing the role of the boss, questioned Atif about the motivations behind their actions. Atif admitted to feeling that the act was necessary to achieve his goals in life. This interaction actually led to the arrest of both Atif and Sebastian, and shockingly, their friend Jimmy Miyoshi.
Huh? The arrest of his friend?
Mm-hmm.
Who was not there the night of the crime?
Allegedly. But he was also recorded in the Mr. Big sting operation discussing murder-related topics.
Of the family?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That causes me to have a little bit more suspicion about the whole sting operation because Jimmy was not there the night of the murders. He was in a different country.
But did he know about it?
Yeah, like maybe, Becky, maybe. Or was the sting operation that coercive that someone who wasn't even fucking there is talking about a murder that he might have not known anything about? Like, that is a big concern and red flag about the sting operation.
He was caught on camera telling them he knew about the murder beforehand.
Caught? What do you mean caught?
Like, he was like in the Mr. Big Sting operation,
Yeah.
it was all recorded video.
Right. Okay.
And he was on it.
Yeah, but were they asking leading questions? Was it in relation to the fact that he was afraid that his friend might get hurt by the crime boss? Like, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, was him saying that to protect his friends, or is it true? Like, that's just the weird thing about all this.
And also, just devil's advocate, was Jimmy there because he was actually helping launder money? So they also needed to trust him to bring him into this whole sting.
Yeah.
Because why would they ask only Sebastian and not Jimmy when they're both involved criminally already?
Right. And then that's like maybe... See, and that's what the problem I have with it. What if Sebastian told him, hey, tell them this, tell them you knew about it, because otherwise we're going to get fucked up by these crime bosses and we need their help because they have evidence that we're, like, I'm linked to this, dude. Like, help me out, help a friend out. That is where I'm at, where I'm like, this whole sting operation, I just have a big problem with it because it doesn't definitively give, like, you don't know that you're getting accurate and real information. It's so convoluted. It's so open to debate almost, whether it's truthful or not.
Well, exactly.
Ugh,
right?
I hate that. I hate that. Although, if it were true, Rebecca, that is some damning shit right there. That their friend knew about it prior. Woo, ciao.
So, one thing I want to bring up is that there are small tidbits in documentaries on YouTube where you can see clips of this.
Yeah.
Mr. Big Sting operation.
Whoa.
Now, I understand everything you're saying in regards to coercion and instilling fear in them.
Yeah.
However, watching it, it doesn't seem fake.
It does feel like they're divulging
their truths.
And at the end of the day, the motive for the money and the fact that they had that script and just how insensitive the whole thing is and the fact that they're willing to engage in criminal activity to make their dream of maybe being directors or movie makers come true does kind of seem to line up to, like, Atif's motive and what he said to them. So, I mean...
Could we be so dense that...
we think it's just coercion when it's really, really...
True. Right? In all my research, Bev, I read a Reddit post. And the person had said that they were able to view more of the Mr. Big Sting operation. And in one part, Sebastian had offered his services to be a hitman. So, again, this is from Reddit. You cannot take it verbatim.
However, if he's willing to be a hitman
and offer that service,
is he above
killing his friend's family
for his own benefit?
I would say no.
Ugh.
But take that with a grain of salt, because I was unable to find that portion of the video. And I searched long and hard.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm just going to, like, forget you said it right now because I can't, because that is so damning.
Yes.
But, okay.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
Now, Bev, because the two were arrested, the crime happened on U.S. soil, they needed to be extradited.
Right, because they're in Canada.
Exactly. Now, this proved to be a complex issue because Washington still had the death penalty. As we know, Canada does not. So Canada refused to extradite the two back to Washington until the death penalty was taken off the table.
They can do that?
Oh yeah, every country can.
Holy shit.
If their legal system does not align with where they're sending them, such as like the death penalty, they will not send them back until they reach an agreement based on like Canadian law.
That is wild.
Yes, it is, isn't it? So Bev, this legal back and forth between Canada and the US eventually reached the Canadian Supreme Court, which in 2001 decided against extradition despite all of the US prosecutors' arguments. However, like I said, when Washington removed the death penalty as their potential consequence, Canada agreed to send him right back.
So Washington, the state of Washington, agreed to take the death penalty off the table for these two boys.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd rather have them in prison
and not at all
serve for their crimes than not.
Exactly.
Wow.
Now, Bev, that back and forth, it actually took almost 7 years.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. So this crime happened 1994.
Uh-huh.
They were arrested in Canada 1995, and they were sent back in 2001. So after 7 long years of legal battles between Canada and the US, they were about to come face to face with their consequences of this crime. All right, Bev, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Next week, we're going to talk about the second half, and this is going to cover the trial and talk about the evidence and talk about the controversy of the Mr. Big sting operation. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing.